Go.
Hello, Collide. And in another colossal technological achievement, we're back on the air live. Hey, Jacob, one time, can we just have this ready to go 15 minutes beforehand? The stress is getting to me.
It's Halloween. It was the nerd trick instead of a treat. See?
There you go.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Got that squared away.
Kirk, how's Halloween on the East Coast?
You know, I haven't gotten out of my house yet, but I am going to a government building straight after this to get a Massachusetts driver's license. So I'll let you know. I bet everyone
sounds like a real haunted house.
I have never been more disappointed in you in my entire life. A Massachusetts driver's license.
I know.
I haven't even changed mine.
So antithetical to everything that we know and who I am, but we're doing it. I mean,
all right.
Happens, right?
Well, hold on. Will you actually take a picture of Holly taking her picture to get the Massachusetts driver's license and send that to me?
She's not doing it. My ID expired and I can't get back to Texas. So I'm like, I'm just sort of trying to play the game. I need a Massachusetts driver's license to get a renewed Texas license.
So,
what?
Okay, I feel much better about the world knowing Holly is not part of this fucking shenanigan.
If she had to take that picture, it would be an epic scowl.
Oh, yeah. It would be Tom DeLay getting arrested, Donald Trump getting arrested level photos.
I need to get her on this. I need to get her on watching us live and she'd comment in. But
absolutely.
Does everyone have the link? Wow, there's what? 28,000 people listening. That's amazing.
Exactly. Now, in a moment I never thought would happen, and we'll rank this as number one Tuesday, and 10 being never in my life me going out with Demi Moore or something that will never happen. This is an 11. This is an 11. I do like the fact the way you said that is you thought I have a shot to go out with Demi Moore.
But Trump rated his talks with she as a 12 out of 10.
I think this is an 11. Are you going to go with 12?
I'm going to go with 13.
13.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know that Sally Yates, my dear sweet mother.
It's Halloween.
There you go. My dear sweet mother went into labor with me on Friday, September 13th. She was in labor for exactly 13 hours. And do you know what room in the hospital she was in?
1333.
No, she was in room 13 of Baylor College of Medicine.
Do you remember the Munsters' old address?
No, I don't.
1313 Mockingbird Lane.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. All right, Mark, kick us off with this monumental moment. And I'm going to try not to cry. I'm so happy.
We're talking about Billy Boomerang.
Oh, of course.
So I was reading through or rereading Bill Gates' blog post from earlier this week, where he's basically said emissions are no longer the priority and we need to shift funding to other things that are human-centric. In fact, I think he used the term improving human lives. Maybe he didn't want copyright violation of Liberty Energy's bettering human lives. But at least at the summary level, that it sounded like there are a lot of parallels, and maybe he's been talking to the secretary. But this one kind of dropped like a bomb on, the landscape ahead of COP30, which is shortly to take place in Brazil. And oh, by the way, he's not going to be in attendance. So basically saying that, all the stuff we told you about catastrophic and cataclysmic effects of climate change in the relative near to midterm, that's not as important right now as making sure that we do the things that help people get more resilient and improve their standard of living, healthcare, vaccinations, et cetera.
Wow.
Yeah. Billy Boomerang. Or as I used to call it when we were talking about, the restarts of coal and nuclear, the 180s. He's now the chairman of the 180 Club.
Well,
Bill Alex Epstein Gates.
When he finally realized that you can't make money off the poor, he pivoted. I mean, I'm not to make fun of the poor, because it says in our great Bible, the poor will always be among us. And I might be one of those someday. So I'm not counting myself out of that, but no one cares about the poor if they can't profit from them. So there you go, Bill.
The cynic would say, follow the money. And there has been a lot of money in 2015, since 2015 in the Paris Accords. But now, as we've seen the real inflection and the projections of where AI goes, and hand in hand with that is, I need all the reliable, abundant, and affordable energy that I can get to win this race. And so I might characterize it as a pivot of opportunity.
And, Let me give you another way to look at this, though. Now that the Epstein Island thing is kind of done with, he was hiding amongst the climate people, because no one wants to rat out another climate person. I mean, he was protected. Now that thing's over, he's like, let's move on to profit. He's not a boomerang. He's just, what is it C.S. Lewis said in Mere Christianity? Integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is watching. I mean, Bill Gates has neither integrity, and clearly is not going to apologize or admit wrong, but he knew it. That's what happened when billionaires, try to be the central planner. The next, shiny bright object comes around and they pivot quicker than, Chuck Yates's girlfriends.
The one thing I think is very underappreciated about Bill Gates, and it's a little ironic that I'm using the term appreciated. If you look at the rise of Microsoft, particularly the early days when he was in charge, it was not brilliant technology. I mean, say what you want about Elon Musk, shooting rockets into space, Tesla. It's brilliant technology. I mean, and the engineering is amazing. Microsoft was always the shittiest operating system. It was a ruthless set of contracts he negotiated. I wrote a paper back in business school saying that Bill Gates was not a technologist. He was the world's greatest lawyer. Because it was the hooking IBM into being the exclusive operating system and more thinking through those business terms. And I mean, he was ruthless with Paul Allen. That was his 50-50 partner. And at some point he renegotiated at 61-39. I mean, and this makes sense because his dad was the biggest corporate lawyer in Seattle. So he learned that at the dining room table. And that is what's core to Bill Gates.
There's a great podcast called Acquired, and they break down Microsoft. Basically, these guys are amazing. I don't know if they're Silicon Valley guys, and they break down companies like Hermes was an amazing one, but they break down Microsoft and they go through all the sort of key moments. But if you have nothing better to do, download Acquired podcast. But hey, guys, we have our first question.
All right.
Nominal oil is up 37% since 2015. But after adjusting for inflation, using CPI through September 2025, the real price is slightly lower than 2015. Is this from, quote, general inflation, end quote, or market movement? That is definitely a Mark question.
Well, I would first say that, and maybe it's dated from my last reference point is too dated, but that holds true for 20 years ago. And I guess the context of this question is general inflation or market movement? Market movement in terms of what? Help me interpret that, Chuck.
I'm not sure. at the end of the day, I think general inflation plays into the oil field in terms of cost of goods.
Input costs.
Input costs. You need, steel for pipe and all the wages and et cetera. But ultimately, the price of oil is supply and demand on any given day. And we have just been so good on the supply side. This was interesting. We did a mini AI conference Wednesday afternoon here. And one of the speakers actually showed the projections. He joined the industry in 2003, and I think we were at 5.4 million barrels a day in the United States. He showed the forecast for 2025, and I think it was like 4.1 million barrels a day or 4.5, something like that. And, we're actually at 13.7 or wherever we are today. And one, he was pointing out just how wrong, and we've always been talking about peak oil, et cetera. But two, the magnitude of that, I'm amazed that we're even at $50 oil, given the supply side we've added.
Yeah, and it's somewhat similar to what happened in the mid '80s, where you had technological underpinnings. Never mind the fact that I think world demand in 1986 was 66 million barrels a day, and OPEC spare capacity was at 14 million barrels a day. I still marvel at a world that is well north of 100 million barrels a day, and once we get the cuts restored, organic spare capacity, if you will, is measured in the low single-digit millions, and that margin, I think, speaks to the market's confidence in how nimble it's been, particularly from the supply side. And you have, I saw someone somewhat critical of Ryan Lance's comments at Energy Intelligence about, we're going to see plateauing and declining. Just look at inventories. And it was a bit of a tongue in cheek. Well, you're applying a 1990 framework. No one cares about inventories. And if you look at where inventories are still, there's still this raging, where's the glut, where's the glut, where's the glut? Well, it's on the water. It's going to show up soon. Well, here we are almost in November tomorrow. So I guess the market's predictive and interpretive dynamics as to what's going on fundamentally with supply and demand have changed a little bit at the margin because of technology, because of, supply systems, just-in-time inventory, if there is such a thing. But it all does come back down to, I think, a higher confidence in supply and the responsiveness of supply, if that makes sense. Totally. And I think a big demonstrator of that is what we've done in the U.S. onshore for the last 15 years.
Yeah. One of the interesting things, Kirk, because Mark had to sit through this at the conference, but one of the stories I told is back in 2018, we were raising Energy Fund 8, and that was all the rage. Tesla was going to put ICE vehicles out of commission within 10 years. And so I was given a speech at various conferences with LPs where I'd get up there and I'd go, hey, let me read some headlines from the New York Times. And I'd go, electric vehicles are sexy, electric vehicles all the rage, blah, 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 all these, fawning headlines about electric vehicles. And then I got up there and I did my whole speech, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's like, we have 300 cars in America right now. Do you know how many of those cars are going to be on the road in 10 years? All of them. We build really good cars today. No one gets rid of a car. Just because you trade your car in to go get a Tesla, somebody else is driving that car. They even wind up in Latin America. And I walked through all that, and I also went, we sell, I forget what it was, 7 million cars a year. Even if half of them go to electric vehicles, that's still adding 3.5 million cars a year and then I went through what that meant for oil demand. Also went through what, there's a lot of plastic in an electric vehicle. There's a lot of diesel that needs to, there's a lot of diesel
Blasphemy.
There's a lot of diesel that needs to run the mining equipment to get those rare earth minerals so that you can do it. And I walked through all of that and basically came away and said, if you think oil's going away in 10 years, you're just stupid. And I get my kind of like polite applause, and I take 2 steps away from the mic, and then I come back and I say, oh, by the way, I forgot to tell y'all, those headlines from the New York Times were from 1916, 1917, and 1918. This has been around for 100 years.
Yeah, and
so I'm just tying it back a little comparison here, but I just looked up, like, I'm doing a video on this. It's since 1899, this golf course on Nantucket. I'm kind of doing a little documentary video. It's called Skinner's, but Sconset Golf. But back over 100 years ago, it was 75 cents to play a round. And so I'm like, okay, today it's around $75. So the compounded annual growth rate's a little bit under 5%. But if I look at oil prices from 1925, when they started tracking them, to today, they were about $1.60, whatever, $1 something, $1.68 per barrel today, whatever, $60. But that's a compounded annual growth rate of 3.5%. So it's actually oil is the most, electricity is number one, but oil is one of the most volatile commodities in the world. But it's interesting, if you just look at the fuel that fuels all of our lives, it's not growing in price all that much. It's interesting. Now, I'm going to have some experts live right now telling me how much of an idiot I am. But I equate everything to golf rounds. So, because I spend a lot of time playing it. Just FYI. So, what say you guys?
I always liked Matt Simmons' shtick about how he'd talk about the price of oil compared to a bottle of Evian water or a Starbucks coffee.
Or a coffee.
Yeah. Or a coffee, and always talked about the utility gained. And I forget what that math was, but back then maybe coffee was $2, $2.50 or something, and he'd equate it to a barrel, and he'd say, which one do you truly want to have?
And you can't have one without the other.
Yeah, exactly.
You certainly can't have the coffee without some derivative of.
Oh, by the way, Kirk, this is big news. So we're going to break this right now on BDE. It's very important. Mark knows this, but the Old Man Coffee Group that I have coffee with every morning before I come into work, and Mark's joined multiple times. We got Congressman Troy Nels, Joe Keith Allen, Jacob, all the gang. They were asked to leave Joseph's Coffee because we were too loud, and now we meet at Larry's Mexican restaurant every morning.
Well,
big news.
That's absolutely, you should be at Larry's. I don't know what you were thinking going to a coffee shop.
Well, and this is interesting.
It's an institution.
There's been a little bit of a divide because Vlad and Neil and Joanna still go to Joseph's Coffee. So I'm not seeing Vlad as much as I used to. So hey, Vlad, I miss you. Drop by Larry's.
But let me give some perspective here. The coffee shop versus the Mexican food restaurant. Like, just think about. Have you ever thought about starting a coffee shop? It's basically the bohemian former hippie that wants to be paid to sit around and opine about the virtue of man or woman, for that matter. The Mexican restaurant is somebody that's working their ass off to feed the family. I just see the culture being so different. I love, pulling up at a coffee shop and wasting time and acting like I'm working. But the Mexican food restaurant represents, good old oil and gas. We're going to just make things happen. The coffee shop sort of represents Bill Gates' old position on climate.
So to your point, Kirk, I will say this. I'm way more caffeinated in the morning when I show up at Collide because the waiter is filling up your coffee cup constantly at Larry's Mexican restaurant.
Oh, and I'm sure coffee's shitty,
where at the coffee shop, you got to walk up, you got to get another cup of coffee, pay for it. So yeah, you're right on.
Just changed.
Snob, but when I'm having Mexican food, there's nothing better than just shitty coffee. And I bet the coffee out on the rigs is shittier.
Yeah. And I do we've got good pastry options at Joseph's coffee shop, but I do like the ability to get a breakfast taco if I need it.
Yeah, I was going to say you've traded sausage glass cheese for a lot of chorizo.
Yeah, chorizo and egg and cheese taco. So, and if I'm feeling no carbs, I can just get scrambled eggs. So,
well, let's move over to soybeans, boys. Now that we're talking about coffee shops, what's going on in the U.S. China trade talks in South Korea?
Yeah, this was a first in 6-year direct meeting between Trump and President Xi of China. Part of call it a sideline event going on in and around APEC. Trump's visited 3 countries on his Asian swing. I think he's been over there for 5 days. Started in Malaysia, Japan, and then he flew to Busan, South Korea, where they met in some building on a military base. And the FT piece that I read, suggested that it was very different because there weren't the bans, the pomp and circumstance, and all of that. But the meeting went on for 90 minutes and really characterized, I think, somewhat differently in terms of enthusiasm, but where I alluded to earlier, Trump rated the talks and the progress as a 13 out of 10.
12.
And 12 out of 10.
12 out of 10. You're at 13.
I'm at 13.
You're out hyping Trump. Never did I think I would see that day.
Yeah. He held it as a quote unquote amazing result. I did note that there wasn't a very in front of amazing. And she said, his characterization is quote unquote steady sailing ahead. But the bottom line is, and these things in the typical timeline, take years to negotiate, kind of a fundamental rework of trade agreements. But what became evident is, what we were after primarily was getting the Chinese to open the vice on critical minerals. They had the export restrictions, and whether raw or processed, we've got huge intractable dependency on China for components that go into a lot of things. On the flip side, China got a relaxation on some precursors to fentanyl in terms of imports. But the big one is, at least the way I read it, is they're now permitted to talk to Jensen Huang.
Yeah.
With NVIDIA. I don't think the national security relevance or criticality of the world's best chips has gone away. And, maybe you can shop over here in the soon to expire bin, but we're going to hold back the best of the best, because I don't think we've conceded our commitment, all out effort to win what has become the most important thing in terms of competition between the U.S. and China is the AI race.
Yep.
I mean, I think that's a mistake. Obviously, it's like giving your opponent the keys to your golf cart while you're still playing. I don't. You think China who knows the loyalties of NVIDIA, but I mean, usually the loyalties of big companies is whoever's going to pay me the most money. That was my experience running commodity trade actually procuring largest commodities when I was working for Michael Dell. I mean, we'd sell to the highest bidder, period, end of story. I mean, what are we doing here? And by the way, soybeans are like the participation trophy of trade deals. No one cares about the soybeans. No one cares. And the fentanyl restrictions, I mean, what are we doing?
That was, well, we'll just keep bombing the worst of it in, the cartel boats.
Yeah, no, I do think you can say a lot about, Trump. He's a real estate broker, so he hypes everything, oh, this is the greatest schools, and this neighborhood has great schools. This is the greatest house on the street, blah, blah, blah. I get all that. I do truly believe, given the experience with his brother, that fentanyl matters to Trump. And I really do think he will push there potentially further than I would on things. And so we need to, if he comes away with China helping on fentanyl, he's going to consider that a big, huge win, even if maybe others don't are worried about the commercial aspects of the rest of the trade deal. Yeah, I do think that's real.
Yeah, and you have to have these precursors because fentanyl has obviously a very important application in the medical community, and if this reduces the illicit flow of the precursors or fentanyl that have been contaminating all kinds of other illicit drugs, and it's, kind of a first order impact of maybe lessening some of that threat, that's a win. But it seems to me that, the biggest threat, I think they had an extreme amount of leverage in the rare earths for sure. Just given the timelines required for us to find and or build our own complete supply chain capability.
Yeah, we're going to be leaning heavy on Australia to.
And it's not just digital technology. It's a lot of important military applications too that you got to have this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give it to you here, boys. I have to go. And I will report back on my driver's license fiasco. This is my second attempt. They denied.
Will you shoot some video? Shoot some video of this. Remember camera landscape, so that that fits with the 16:9.
Yeah, tell maybe Holly could come along and record for us.
To support Holly, and as Milton Friedman would say, that tariffs are taxes on your own people. But in my perspective, if you look at this, we got soybeans, the Chinese got NVIDIA access. It's like trading a sandwich for a Ferrari because you were hungry. I mean, we are, again, man, it's not 4D chess because I hate that. But the Chinese are playing chess and we're playing checkers, boys. I'll see you in either prison or I'll take some video. So peace out, boys.
Thanks, man.
Peace out. I got a few more minutes if you do, Mark.
Yeah, let's touch on the other item we skipped, which is
the Ruskies.
We just announced, the U.S. just announced a fresh round of oil sanctions that targeted specifically two companies, Rosneft and Lukoil. Lukoil is private. Rosneft is a government influenced or controlled entity. And this is just kind of more of the endless parade of sanctions, either coming out of the EU or the U.S. But, this was a pretty dramatic step immediately following the cancellation of what was going to be the next face-to-face meeting between Trump and Putin in Budapest. And so one thing I looked at in going through all this is that Russian exports of petroleum essentially account for 25% of their budget and the ability to fund it. That's dropped by $35 billion estimated year over year from 24 to 25. And we all know that that's primarily price related. And we've long been talking about, Doomberg really started it, but basically what's the best way to really put a dent in the Russians' ability to fund the war machine, and that isn't sanctions, which don't work. That is, principally don't work. and that is to flood the market, because the last thing the Russians want is lower prices, and that's what they've gotten, and potentially lower from here for an untenable period of time relative to their ability to continue to, to push aggressively on the Ukraine offensive.
So three things here on this point. One, we in the West sit there and view Putin as this autocrat, right, who just rules with an iron fist. He's going into a back alley having a fight every day to keep his job. That's something that I think's underappreciated by the West, that, he's got forces within Russia that he has to deal with on a daily basis to remain in that seat. So that's kind of one. Number two, I underestimated my entire career, particularly in the shale revolution, underestimated Russia's ability to produce oil. I mean, they were just always surprisingly resilient in their ability to grow oil production. And I think kind of likewise, I am underappreciating their ability to have an economy in the face of all these sanctions. I saw an expert one time on Fox News, and I wish I remember her name because she sounded very smart and thoughtful. She said, Putin is prepared for this day, and he has, in effect, sanctioned-proofed his economy so that he has more run room than we appreciate that he has. And then the third thing I was going to say that we need to be thinking about, I've totally blanked on. So it was Russians always underestimated them. Putin's in the third thing that I think bears saying here is Marco Rubio has been on a Babe Ruth-like run as Secretary of State for all the dismissive little Marco talk, and back when he ran for president previously, they kind of said he was lazy and wasn't out. He has done a hell of a job as Secretary of State. You can dislike him and dislike his policies, but in terms of the conflicts being shut down, yeah, we haven't stopped Russia and Ukraine yet, but he has done a really good job. And it was supposedly his call to say, we're not going to Budapest. So,
yeah,
trust in Marco on this one.
Yeah, and related to this sequence of events, it was announced yesterday, late, I believe, that Lukoil sold its international assets to Gunvor, the Swiss trading shop. Terms weren't announced, but there was one source that claimed that those assets generally were worth around $12 billion. And if you think about kind of this hurry up and sell it framework, then maybe there's a 20 to 30% discount. Whether that was ordered by the Kremlin or something unique to Lukoil, don't know. But there is an interesting coincidence here that Lukoil has decided to shed, a pretty meaningful part of its portfolio.
Swiss trading firms rarely buy things without a discount. It's been my
and
experience.
And they rarely tell you anything about it.
Exactly. So we let Kirk off the hook since he's got to go get his driver's license, but with the stories today, so Bill Gates capitulating to some degree. I mean, he still said it's a problem. We need to focus on it, but getting rid of the doom and gloom. Russian oil sanctions. And then what else did we talk about? China
talks.
Trade. Give me some predictions out of that maybe we're not thinking about today.
So I think
a year from now, 2 years from now.
I think the most interesting one is the first thing we talked about. What is the cascade effect of Gates's, kind of massive truth bomb here? Right. In fact, he frames it with three tough truths about climate. Climate change is serious, but won't end civilization is number one.
All right.
Temperature is not the best way to measure our progress on climate. I think that's the most shocking one, because what have we been talking about for the last 50 years?
Right.
Global warming.
1.5 degrees.
And health and prosperity are the best defense against climate change. And those of us on the pragmatist side don't deny that we've had some level of warming, but none of this matters until we solve for primarily prosperity. And so the kind of extreme part of that faction that he used to be in step with, who are the key players, both political leaders, business leaders, and others, NGOs, who's going to follow suit and over what time frame? I had a special edition recording yesterday with Mike Umbro talking about all the things around California, particularly the offshore stuff with Sable. And we talked a little bit about, Newsom's got a shortening runway to position himself for 28. And so is he going to say, okay, I'm going to quit kind of mixing, speaking in code or being ambiguous about this? I'm going to fall in line and become a pragmatist as, the most viable candidate for 28 in the Democrat Party. So that's, I think the aftermath and how quickly conversions occur. I think we'll see quite a few, because it's a pretty good opportunity to get on the right side if you believe he's now on the right side.
The thing I think that we're going to be thinking about this in the future and the ramifications is, I'm going to go ahead and say this was Prince Rainier and Grace Kelly getting married, big tech and energy. I think big tech, obviously Prince Rainier, they're seeing the beauty of Grace Kelly, the energy, and it's going to be love, and it's going to last forever, and it's going to be great. And if you think about it like that and the ramifications of what are going to happen, John Arnold joining the Meta board, things like that, I think that's what we're going to see over the future. I don't believe this is a shotgun marriage. I truly feel like there is an appreciation in Silicon Valley for actually now what energy does, and they think we're hot. Now, maybe I'm being Pollyanna.
Well, and I think they've come to the realization that it is an all of the above, not either or transition, and that the notion of changing out the entire global energy system is misguided, just given the technology and the physics of how technology successfully operates. We've got to have all of the above. And it became a bit of a windmill chase, no pun intended, to cast this as emissions reduction primacy net zero when you're hamstringing a lot of other things. And I thankfully Bill Gates has finally made human flourishing the seeming top priority. The problem today is more acute, and stop trying to solve for a problem that's, that we can adapt to, is basically what he's saying, to improve technology and resilience and all that. And we've proven that over the 150 years of plus of this industry, that has taken on kind of primary urgency. There's just not enough money to go around to try and do this kind of radical transformation of the global energy system over what I've always characterized as a revolutionary timescale. When you think about 2030, 2035, and 2050, between where we started in 2015 with Paris. And so, physics over platitudes. And it's good to have that acceptance and acknowledgement in a more constructive alignment between the parties on either side of this whole climate debate.
Well, and I think what's embedded in what Bill Gates said, whether he means it or not, and I will. One of the things I should have said, as I was saying, Bill's not a technologist; he was a lawyer. I mean, no smarter group of technologists on the planet than those folks at Microsoft today. I mean, clearly they're building great technology.
In Silicon Valley in general.
Yeah, Silicon Valley in general and all that. The biggest thing about the climate movement from my side was always, the rules for thee, but not for me.
Right.
Like I get to have a 10,000 square foot house and air conditioning and all that. But hey, you folks in Africa, you need to have a solar panel that doesn't work. You can't have electricity at night, And so he talked about flourishing, but human flourishing, but also hopefully there's a recognition of it's kind of our moral duty. I mean, to serve humanity so that we're not having people with energy poverty. I mean, that's a shitty thing to do to people.
I do think it's an ulterior, which is,
it's all about his data.
There's not enough money to go around to keep pushing this at full steam ahead with net zero by 2050 and some of these technologies being pushed too far and too fast. Because what you're trying to get to is commercial scale or grid scale. And so, the only thing, and Arjun tweeted about it when Zero Hedge put out a piece on this, he alluded to the fact over his sell side career as an equity analyst, I made a lot of well-documented wrong calls, but always owned them. And really the disappointment for me, and this is hugely naive, is that there's not an accountability or an acknowledgement that this path that we've been on, certainly since Paris, we've gone off on a lot of distractions that have done a lot of damage.
Yeah.
You could argue. Restricting finance to oil and gas finance or fossil fuel finance to African countries that sorely need it, when they're tethered to things like IMF loans, et cetera, you've kind of not done as much as you could by a pretty significant number in terms of solving problems with proven energy solutions. There are no energy poor rich countries. Right. What's the correlation with rich countries? I mean, we use 23 barrels per capita in the U.S. and the poorest countries in the world use far less than a barrel.
Yep.
So we could have been accelerating things in that regard and funding those more immediate solutions because, and we've done a good job in, pollution mitigation globally and raising people up out of poverty, but we could have done a lot more. Plus we could have not spent trillions on things that ultimately were kind of a bridge to nowhere.
Well, and I want to do this. I want to pat our industry on the back because let's just be blunt. We took a lot of shit for this, a lot of jabs, and we didn't do things petty like, hey, let's just shut off all energy today to see what happens.
Right.
And that would have been a very effective tool for our side. We did not do that because we were responsible enough to know that people would die if we did that. So number one, kudos to us for fighting the fight on facts, figures, and reason. I'm not saying the fight's over. Number two, I don't want to be this petty, but I'm going to go ahead and be this petty. Remember for years, it was Exxon knew about climate change and hid it. Is this admission by Bill Gates covering that the other side has figured out that human emissions truly aren't leading to the 1.5% degree temperature rise? Are they covering that up? Are you? I hate to be petty, but I think it's a fair question.
It is a fair question.
Yeah. What have you guys figured out that you're hiding from us?
Yeah, I mean, what was the truly principled reason for the shift? What was the altruistic reason for the shift? I happen to believe it was opportunistic and follow the money oriented. Yeah. Maybe that wasn't the dominant factor.
And I'll even go with the romantic Grace Kelly. They fell in love with Grace Kelly. Took them a while to find Grace Kelly, but
I just think in the arms race that is AI and chips and technology that they realize that we don't have time to wait on the scale and reliability of quote unquote clean solutions, which clean energy and other dirty energy, I hope that distinction goes away because as we've often said, there's trade-offs with every form of energy production, transportation, transmission. So, I predict we're going to see some quick follow-ons. I mean, our president and the current administration are there. So
spike the football.
He already spiked the football on, Gates admitting he was wrong. And I have to give attribution to Mike Umbro. He did coin the term Billy Boomerang.
Billy Boomerang. I like that. All right. Hey, Jacob, in a first on BDE, we're going to go to a live remote, although I don't think it's live because we just got a video. Did we actually get a video from Kirk, and can you play it? And I haven't. I got it queued up. You got it queued up. So hold on. Kirk had to surrender his Texas driver's license. That's so fucking Massachusetts to do, by the way. He had to surrender that, and we have this live report, and I have not seen this. So no two words have gotten me in more trouble in my life, but here goes. I'm in. Play it.
I'll hear it.
Oh. Not exactly Steven Spielberg on the cinematography, but not bad. All right.
I guess he lost his Wi-Fi, or was that the end of the tape?
I think that's the end of the tape.
I enjoyed you embedding the Landman promo or preview.
That was all Jacob.
Into the Landman live yesterday, which was quite good.
Absolutely. All right, Mark, what are final thoughts? Anything good?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like, we're any progress on the China trade question is good news. The devil's in the details. And, are we sacrificing our competitive advantages? What worries me most is primarily this concession that, you guys can talk to NVIDIA.
Although I'm not so worried about that, because if we don't think China can get a hold of as many NVIDIA chips as they want, we're way underestimating the Chinese.
And they're ultimately going to produce technology, I think, that either through copying or innovation that is they're very laser focused on things like economic competitiveness and technology competitiveness, and not so distracted by kind of the culture war issues, climate among them that we in the West are.
Yeah.
And so
I kind of think too, this is Finance Bro who's stayed at a Holiday Inn last night, so I'm playing AI guy these days. I do think that AI has gotten so good at such a level that it might be like the iPhone, that, the iPhone 12 can do a lot of really, really cool stuff. And China's going to have the iPhone 12, even though, what are we on, 17 or 18
17 now, yeah.
And so at the end of the day, thinking through the uses for AI and what you can do with it, there is a subject matter expert type level of figuring out these tools that China will be really good at. How do we go wage war? We released a virus and we did this. They're going to be thinking that with their iPhone 12 and be able to execute on it. So, I think we're going to have to remain vigilant on that front. But anyway, good to see you, dude.
What's the Halloween plan?
I got no Halloween plan. I've been traveling so much with work. I have not worked out. So when I get home tonight, I'm going to go work out. I haven't lifted in a long time. So I'm going to go lift, go do stretch tomorrow. Probably a long walk in the gritty streets of Richmond tomorrow morning.
I might have to try and find a time to pop into Larry's before the end of the year.
There you go.
Although that's a long way from where I am right now.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Southwest has flights.
Well, I'm talking about I'm on the north side of Houston now when I come in town. So
I was joking that you had to take Southwest to get to Richmond.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, it was good having you in the office this week.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Collide, thanks for joining. If you like this, please tell a friend. Join us next time. We're going to try to do more of these live. I think they're fun.
And if you haven't caught the Landman episode, has it been posted?
Jacob, we posted Landman, right?
We sure did.
Yeah, so on Collide in the video library, Wednesday, got on with Gates Mueller, bore on the floor, shale floor, and then Matt Toohey, and we kind of talked the state of being landmen today. So a lot of talk about technology, staffing. I thought it was pretty interesting.
I thought the AI thoughts, insights, applicability from the experts was very
Gates and
very
Matt,
interesting.
Gates, Matt, and Bohr are all really sharp dudes. So,
and be on the lookout here. Hopefully Monday.
Oh, cool.
We dropped the special edition
with
BDE with Umbro, and this whole California battle is the lightning rod issue is obviously what we've talked about, and I've written about going on with Sable and the SYU restart. That's I think a pretty important thing to focus on outside of the Permian, where we spend a lot of our time.
It's
knock on the Permian, but it was refreshing to talk about something I think is maybe it hasn't flown under the radar, but it's an important story, especially with the imminent refinery closures. I mean, they're going to close 18% of their refining capacity.
It's got an Atlas Shrugged vibe of shocking John Galt, fix the economy. And
as much as we like to parody California, it is obviously still a very, very important economy and state.
Largest population in the state, biggest economy.
The one thing that he was very good, that Mike was very good at talking about, was this whole kind of historical scientific perspective and related to natural seeps and the VOCs. And, he grew up there and has lived there his whole life. And so he's got anecdotal data points from when he was a kid to now in visiting some of the coastal areas. And so this,
Well, I've told you that we owned part of the La Brea tar pit field with one of our portfolio companies. And the first thing, when we bought it, first thing the CEO wanted to do was send a vacuum truck out to just pick up all the seepage on the ground. And the lawyers had a fit. You cannot vacuum that up. And he goes, why not? One, we can sell it, but two, it's just good for the environment. And he goes, no, the second you vacuum it up, people walk in and say, you caused it. This is natural seepage. We leave it alone. And that's just ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. Anyway, so look forward to that here in the next few days. So
sounds good. All right, Clyde.
Thanks everybody for joining
us. Peace out. Good luck, Kirk.